After a severe thunderstorm swept through Lenexa, Kansas, Lily and her family were startled to discover a wild bobcat lingering in their backyard. But something was terribly wrong. The bobcat was circling with a laser-focused purpose and refusing to leave. It wasn't hunting, and it wasn't aggressive. It was searching for something. Something was driving this wild creature to stay. Why wouldn't it leave? What could it possibly be looking for? When animal control arrived, the officer's face went pale as she watched the scene. "We need to check your security camera footage immediately," she said. After checking the footage from the night before, they discovered the shocking truth that had been hidden inside their own home the entire time. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The silence that follows a great storm is a peculiar thing. It isn't an empty silence, but one thick with the memory of chaos. It's a quiet filled with the drip of water from saturated leaves, the scent of rain-soaked earth and bruised pine, and the soft, weary sigh of a world putting itself back together. For Lily and Mark Peterson, in their quiet corner of Lenexa, Kansas, the morning after the deluge was just such a morning. The thunderstorm had been a monster, a true Midwestern tantrum that had rattled the windows in their frames and sent the ancient oak in their backyard into a thrashing, groaning dance. Lily, a woman whose 67 years had taught her to find beauty in the aftermath of nature's furies, stood at her kitchen window with a warm mug of coffee cradled in her hands. The sun was timid, peeking through a tattered quilt of gray clouds, and its light cast a silver sheen over the drenched landscape. Broken twigs littered the patio, and a collection of pink and white petals from her prized azalea bush were scattered like confetti across the lawn. It was a mess, but a beautiful one. She was about to call out to Mark to suggest they start the cleanup when a flicker of movement near the back fence caught her eye. It wasn't a squirrel or a neighbor's wandering cat. This creature moved with a fluid, muscular grace that was utterly wild. It was tawny gold, dappled with dark, rosetted spots, and possessed a powerful, compact body. A short, bobbed tail twitched with agitation, and atop its head, a pair of magnificent tufted ears swiveled, catching every minute sound. A bobcat. Here, in their suburban backyard. "Mark," Lily breathed, her voice a hushed whisper. "Mark, you have to come see this." Mark, who had been settling into his favorite armchair with the morning paper, ambled into the kitchen, adjusting his glasses. "What's all the fuss about? Did that rascally squirrel finally figure out the bird feeder?" He followed her gaze and his sentence trailed off into a low whistle. "Well, I'll be. Look at that." It was a stunning sight. They had lived in this house for 30 years, on the edge of a small green belt that snaked through the neighborhood, and had seen their share of wildlife: deer, raccoons, the occasional coyote slinking by at dusk. But a bobcat, this close, this bold, was something new. It wasn't just passing through either. The animal paced the length of their back fence, its head low, its yellow gold eyes scanning every inch of the yard with a desperate intensity. It would walk from the dense thicket of trees on the left to the weathered garden shed on the right, then turn and repeat the journey, its padded paws silent on the wet grass. For the first hour, it was a marvel, a private nature documentary unfolding just beyond their patio door. They watched, fascinated, as the cat's powerful shoulders rippled with each step. But as the morning bled into afternoon, their fascination slowly curdled into a quiet concern. The bobcat didn't leave. Its patrol became more frantic. It approached the house, peering into the lower windows of the sunroom, its breath fogging the glass. It circled the foundation, sniffing at the vents and the base of the deck. Once, it let out a sound that was not a roar or a hiss, but a low, guttural chuff, a sound of profound, aching worry. "It's not aggressive," Lily observed, sitting on a dining chair she'd pulled up to the glass patio door. The bobcat was just feet away now on the stone tiles, and she could see the tension in its body, the focused, almost maddening energy. "It's looking for something. Or someone," Mark added, standing behind her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "It's in distress, Lil. I've never seen a wild animal act like this. It's like it's lost its keys." The humor felt thin, a weak defense against the growing unease. The day wore on. They canceled their plans to go to the hardware store. They ate a quiet lunch at the kitchen table, their eyes constantly drawn to the window, to the relentless, heartbreaking ballet of the searching animal. The sight of it was beginning to weigh on them. This wasn't just a wild creature. It was a creature in torment. By 3 o'clock, with the bobcat showing no signs of giving up its vigil, Lily knew they couldn't just keep watching. "I'm calling animal control," she announced, her voice firm. "Something is wrong. It might be sick or injured, and it's clearly not going to leave on its own." Mark nodded in agreement. "It's the right thing to do. We can't help it, but maybe they can." Lily found the number and explained the situation to the dispatcher, feeling a little foolish describing the animal's strange, persistent behavior. The dispatcher was calm and professional, assuring her that they would send an officer to assess the situation. Less than an hour later, a white truck with the Lenexa city seal on its side pulled into their driveway. A woman in a khaki uniform stepped out, her movements unhurried and confident. She had a kind, weathered face and a calm demeanor that immediately put Lily at ease. Her name tag read, "Officer Davis." "Lily Peterson?" she asked, extending a hand. "You called about a bobcat?" "Yes, please come in," Lily said, leading her through the house to the back door. "It's been out here since dawn, just pacing." Officer Davis stood beside Lily, looking through the glass. The bobcat was there, still patrolling, its spotted coat a beautiful, tragic camouflage against the dappled afternoon light. The officer didn't reach for a tranquilizer gun or a catchpole. Instead, she lifted a pair of binoculars that hung around her neck. She watched in silence for a full 5 minutes, her expression a mixture of intense focus and deep empathy. Finally, she lowered the binoculars and turned to Lily and Mark. "Well, you're right to be concerned," she said, her voice low and steady. "But your visitor isn't sick, and it isn't rabid. It's a mother." Lily's breath caught in her throat. "A mother?" "Absolutely," Officer Davis affirmed. "I've seen this before, especially after a big storm. The frantic, repetitive searching in a specific area, the vocalizations. That sound you probably heard isn't aggression. It's a call. She's been separated from her kitten. Or kittens. She's looking for her baby." The knowledge landed like a physical blow. The bobcat's day-long agony suddenly had a name: grief. Every silent step, every desperate glance, was the primal, powerful cry of a mother for her lost child. "Oh, the poor thing," Lily whispered, her hand flying to her chest. "Storms are disorienting for wildlife," the officer explained gently. "Loud thunder, flashing lightning, high winds. It's chaos. It's easy for a little one to get scared, run for cover, and get separated from its mom. The mother's scent trails get washed away by the rain, making it nearly impossible for them to find their way back to each other. She looked around the yard, her experienced eyes taking in every detail. She's convinced her kitten is here, somewhere close. Her gaze then shifted to the house itself. Do you happen to have any security cameras? A doorbell cam? Anything that might have caught footage of the backyard during the storm last night? Mark's eyes lit up with sudden realization. The new camera. We just installed one on the back door last month. Let's take a look, Officer Davis said, her tone sharpening with purpose. It's a long shot, but it's the best one we've got. They gathered around the computer in Mark's small home office. He pulled up the camera's app and scrolled back through the timeline to the previous night. The screen filled with a grainy black and white image of their patio, illuminated by the eerie glow of the camera's infrared light. The storm was a ghostly rage on the screen. Rain lashed down in silvery streaks, and the wind whipped the branches of the oak tree into a frenzy. They watched, transfixed, as the timestamp clicked forward. Then, at 1:17 a.m., a tiny, drenched figure stumbled into the frame. It was impossibly small, a miniature version of the magnificent animal still pacing their yard. Its fur was slicked down with rain, and it looked bewildered, its oversized paws unsteady on the slick stone. It was a bobcat kitten. "There!" Lily gasped. As they watched, a powerful gust of wind rattled the house. The patio door, which they'd left cracked open just an inch to let in the cool night air before the storm had truly unleashed its fury, was blown wide open. The terrified kitten, seeing a dark, quiet opening, a refuge from the terrifying noise and water, scurried inside the house without a moment's hesitation. A second later, another gust slammed the door shut with a definitive thud. A heavy silence filled the office. Lily and Mark stared at the screen, then at each other. The implications were staggering. The searching mother, the lost baby. They weren't just in the yard. The kitten was in their house. "Oh my goodness," Mark murmured, running a hand through his hair. "It's been in here this whole time." The guilt was immediate and overwhelming. While they had been watching the mother's agonizing search, her baby had been trapped inside, just yards away. "Don't blame yourselves," Officer Davis said quickly, sensing their distress. "There's no way you could have known. The important thing is, we know where it is now, and it's safe from the elements and predators." Her calm professionalism took over. "All right, we need to find it. It will be terrified, so it will have found the smallest, darkest place it could wedge itself into. We need to be quiet and methodical. Think like a scared kitten. Kitchens and laundry rooms are common, lots of hiding spots behind appliances." The three of them began a slow, careful search. They checked under sofas, behind curtains, and in closets, their movements soft, their voices hushed. Every creak of the floorboards felt like a thunderclap. After 20 minutes of fruitless searching, they moved into the kitchen. Lily's heart was pounding. She scanned the room, her eyes tracing the gaps between the cabinets and the walls. And then she saw it. Tucked into the narrow space behind the refrigerator, against the wall where the motor hummed softly, were two enormous, luminous blue eyes staring out from the darkness. They were eyes filled with a terror so profound it made Lily's own eyes water. A tiny spotted body was pressed flat against the floor, trembling uncontrollably. "I found it," Lily whispered, pointing. Officer Davis moved with practiced slowness. She pulled on a pair of thick leather gloves from her belt. "Don't worry, little one," she murmured, her voice a soothing balm. "We're going to get you back to your mama." She reached in gently, wrapping a small, soft towel around the trembling kitten, and lifted it out. It was a fragile, weightless bundle of fur and fear. It didn't fight or hiss. It was simply frozen. Once in the light, they could see how small it was, no bigger than a domestic cat, its paws comically large for its body. Its baby blue eyes, a feature of very young kittens, looked up at them, wide with confusion. Hope surged through the room. This was it, the moment of reunion. Officer Davis, cradling the kitten securely, led the way to the patio door. Lily and Mark followed, their faces beaming with anticipation. They reached the door, their eyes scanning the yard for the beautiful, pacing mother. The yard was empty. The bobcat was gone. The silence that descended was heavier than any they had felt all day. The brilliant hope of a moment before vanished, replaced by a cold, hollow dread. They scanned the fence line, the edge of the woods, the shelter of the garden shed. Nothing. The mother had disappeared. "She was just here," Mark said, his voice laced with disbelief. "My truck, my presence. It might have finally been too much for her," Officer Davis said, her own voice tight with disappointment. "Or she may have decided to expand her search perimeter. We were so close." The tiny kitten in her arms let out a faint mewing cry, a sound so full of longing it was almost unbearable. They had found the baby, only to lose the mother. Officer Davis looked from the darkening sky to the kitten in her arms. "It's getting too late," she said decisively. "We've lost our window for today. Trying to call for her now in the dark is too risky. There are other predators out here, coyotes, great horned owls." She turned to Lily and Mark, her expression serious. "I know this is a lot to ask, but the best thing for this kitten right now is to stay here overnight. We need to keep it warm, safe, and away from people to minimize stress. In the morning, at first light, I'll be back. We'll try again. A mother bobcat will not give up her search this easily. She's still out there. I promise." She gave them careful instructions. A cardboard box lined with soft blankets placed in the quiet laundry room. A shallow dish of water. No food, as the wrong kind could make it sick, and it would be fine for one night. Most importantly, she stressed, handle it as little as possible. It needs to stay wild. Its best chance is with its mother, not in a rehab center. That night was one of the longest of the Petersons' lives. They set up the box exactly as instructed. Every so often, a tiny, heart-rending mew would drift from the laundry room, a lonely question floating in the dark. Lily found she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, picturing the mother bobcat out there in the cool night, still searching, her heart aching with a grief Lily could now feel in her own chest. The weight of responsibility for the tiny life in the next room was immense. They were the bridge between a mother and her child, and she prayed they wouldn't fail. True to her word, Officer Davis's truck pulled into the driveway just as the sun began to paint the eastern sky in shades of rose and gold. The air was calm, cool, and filled with the optimistic chirping of waking birds. Officer Davis looked determined. "All right," she said, skipping the pleasantries. "I have a plan. It's a little unorthodox and it's risky, but I think it's our best shot." She led them into the backyard, her eyes landing on the tall wooden privacy fence that separated their property from the woods beyond. "We can't just put the kitten on the ground. It's too vulnerable. But a bobcat's instinct, especially a kitten's, is to climb when it's scared. It wants to be elevated." She pointed to the top of the 6-foot fence. "I'm going to place it up there. It's high enough to make it feel safer and to protect it from a passing coyote. Its little claws will be able to grip the wood. Most importantly, from that position, its cries will carry farther, and the mother will be able to see it from the safety of the woods before she risks coming into the open. Lily's stomach clenched. On top of the fence? What if it falls? What if the mother doesn't come back right away and another animal? It's a gamble, Officer Davis admitted, her gaze unwavering. But leaving it in a box on the ground is a bigger one. This plays to their natural instincts. We have to put our faith in that mother's bond. It's the most powerful force in this entire ecosystem. We just have to set the stage and trust her to do the rest. Lily looked at Mark, who gave a slow, deliberate nod. They had to trust her. Officer Davis went inside and returned with the kitten, who was blinking in the sudden bright light. She carried it to the back fence and, with a gentle but firm motion, placed it on the flat top rail. Instantly, the kitten's tiny, sharp claws dug into the wood, its body hunkered down. It looked terrified, but secure. "Okay," the officer whispered, backing away slowly. "Everyone inside. Now we wait." The three of them retreated into the house, pressing themselves against the glass of the patio door. Their home had become a wildlife blind. The kitten, alone on its high perch, began to cry. It was the same faint mew from the night before, but out here in the vastness of the morning, it sounded infinitely more fragile and desperate. Each cry was a tiny arrow of sound, shot into the silent woods. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Lily held her breath, her eyes glued to the fence line. 10 minutes. 20. Doubt began to creep in, cold and sharp. What if they had been wrong? What if the mother had moved on during the night, convinced her baby was gone for good? And then, a flicker of movement. At the very edge of the woods, a shadow detached itself from the other shadows. A pair of intense yellow eyes peered through the leaves. It was her, the mother. She stood perfectly still, a statue of wild caution, her ears erect, her body poised to either fight or flee. The kitten on the fence saw her, and its cry changed. It became more insistent, more demanding, a sound of pure recognition. The mother took a tentative step out of the woods, then another. She moved with a breathtaking stealth, her belly low to the ground. Her eyes darted everywhere, scanning the yard, the windows of the house, the sky above. She was assessing every possible threat. She saw her baby, saw that it was alive, but she would not approach until she was certain it was safe. She reached the base of the fence directly below her kitten. She looked up and let out that soft, chuffing sound they had heard before. A sound of reassurance, of love, of "I am here." What happened next was a moment of pure, untamed magic. The kitten, galvanized by the presence of its mother, scrambled a few feet down the vertical face of the fence. Then, with a burst of instinct and courage, it launched itself into the air. For a heart-stopping second, the tiny spotted body was suspended between the fence and the ground. The mother surged forward to meet it. It wasn't a catch so much as an embrace. The kitten landed softly against her chest, and the mother immediately enveloped it, nudging it with her nose, bathing its face and ears with a rough, loving tongue. She licked it from head to toe, cleaning away the scent of the house, of human hands, reclaiming it as her own. The kitten, for its part, burrowed into her thick fur, its tiny body finally still, its desperate journey over. Inside the house, tears were streaming down Lily's face. Mark had his arm wrapped tightly around her, his own eyes misty. Officer Davis watched, a slow, brilliant smile spreading across her face. "Incredible," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. After a few minutes of tender reunion, the mother bobcat gently gripped the scruff of her kitten's neck in her mouth. The baby went limp, trusting her completely. She gave one last, long look at the house, at the silent figures watching from behind the glass. Lily couldn't be sure, but she felt a sense of acknowledgement in that final stare. A silent, wild thank you. And then, as quickly as she'd appeared, she turned and melted back into the deep green shadows of the woods, her precious cargo held securely. They were gone. The quiet that filled the yard now was different. It was a peaceful quiet, full and content. The hole that had been torn in the world by the storm had been mended. Later that week, the Lenexa Police Department shared the story on their social media page, along with Officer Davis's photos of the reunion. They used the incredible event to gently remind the community that they share their suburban spaces with a vibrant world of wildlife. They advised residents to check their yards and sheds for displaced animals after severe weather, to always keep a safe distance, and to remember that the most powerful force in nature is often the bond between a mother and her child. For Lily and Mark, their backyard was forever changed. It was no longer just a patch of grass and flowers. It was a stage, a sanctuary, a place where the wild, beautiful, and sometimes heartbreaking drama of life could unfold. Lily would often find herself looking out the patio door, her eyes scanning the edge of the woods, half hoping to catch a glimpse of a certain spotted cat and her fast-growing kitten, forever grateful for the day a mother's desperate love refused to give up, and for the small part they were allowed to play in her incredible story.